Hi, my name is Timothy Mehaney. Today I will be giving a quick tutorial on how to use a 3D printer. First I will go through a slideshow, and then after that I will be using a program called SketchUp. This program will help me design a model, and from there I will take that model and use a program called Cura. From there, that will help me get everything ready to use a 3D printer, and finally I will go through the steps to use a 3D printer. What is 3D printing? 3D printing is a process in which you create a three-dimensional object from a digital file. The creation of 3D printing is done by an additive process. So what that means is first we start from nothing, and then we slowly add up until we get to our final project, whatever that may be. So how does it work? The virtual design of an object must be created using some form of CAD software. CAD stands for Computer Aided Design. You can also use virtual scanners. This software will then slice the model into hundreds or even thousands of horizontal layers, and the printer creates the object layer by layer, resulting in one three-dimensional object. So as you can see down here in the bottom, to the left I have my model. So this is basically my SketchUp. I will design my model. It will then be took to Cura, where Cura will now take it and get all my slices that I will need in order to print. And then the final step will be my 3D printer, where it will print layer by layer until I finally get my model. So one common type of plastic is PLA. It's ideal for consumer products, so small toys, high print speeds can give smooth layers. Because PLA flows a little bit better than ABS, you can print more detailed objects with higher speeds. It's especially good at producing sharp corners. It's made from cornstarch or sugar cane, so it's biodegradable, so it's environmentally friendly, which is a great thing especially when dealing with a school. And it also requires no heat bed. Next we have ABS. So this is ideal for moving parts, so automotive parts, electronic housing, toys. It's the same material that Legos are made from. So if you have a robotics team, maybe you need to print parts, so ABS could be something that you look into. It has high durability and is soluble in acetone. The chemicals from ABS can be toxic. So for items that could be used, let's say you're making a fork or something that could touch your mouth, you would rather stay away from ABS. So this picture right here, this owl was printed, and on the left you can see it has a shiny finish, and on the right it doesn't. The one on the right is directly from the printer. The one on the left was placed in a container with acetone, and over time the plastic dissolved and gave a shiny finish. Next we have hips. So the primary benefits are dual extrusion support structures when paired with ABS. Some 3D printers have dual extrusion, which means you can print maybe two different colors, two different types of plastics, depending on what you're using. So some objects that you're going to print, you're going to need supports. So most common use for hips would be to use that for your supports. That can easily be dissolved in various solvents. So the most common types of plastics, like I said, were PLA, ABS, and hips. Now there are many more than that, but those are three common ones. As you can see from the PLA, we don't need a bed temperature. For the ABS and hips, we need 50 to 100 degrees Celsius. Now, are all 3D printers the same? The short answer is no. When you're looking into getting a 3D printer, some things that you should consider is, does it have a heated bed? So like previously mentioned, some plastics require the bed to be at a certain temperature in order to print, or to have a nice finish. You also have encasement. Some printers have an open display, and other ones are more closed in. In a junior high and even a senior high setting, it's probably better to have an encasement, because in that way it's less likely to be touched by a student. So then we have our plastics. So not all 3D printers can use the same type of plastics. So it is something that you should be cautious of when looking for printers and the required plastics. So how to create a 3D item. So using a CAD software like SketchUp, SolidWorks, or anything else, you can generate a 3D object and then retrieve an STL file or an STL extension. A program called Cura must then be downloaded for the desired 3D printer to produce the item you wish to print. Once the correct settings are selected in Cura, you can then save to get a G-code, and this is what you will then print from your 3D printer. So for this tutorial, I had a design problem. You recently bought a phone off of We Sell, You Buy. The phone was an iPhone and not the iPhone you expected. This means that it came with a shorter than expected charging cable. This poses the problem of charging your phone. You need to now design a platform that can hold your phone as well as a charging block. The charging block requires an opening of 30mm by 30mm and to be 30mm deep. The bed on which the phone will lay will need to be between 5.5 to 6.5 inches by 3.5 to 4.5 inches with a depth of 5mm. You can also design a notch that enables the phone to be tilted up. Here are some design ideas in which you could use when trying to solve for this design challenge. And finally, this here is what I will produce at the end of this video. So this here is SketchUp. The current version that I'm using is 2015. First, when you open it, you will be prompted to choose a template. For this here tutorial, I will be using woodworking and inches. So first, you want to go up here and select your shape. So we know we're going to need a rectangle. So choose any side you want, click. Now you type in your measurement. So I'm going to do 3.5 by 6. Press enter. Now because I'm in inches, I don't need to type in anything else other than my numbers. So we can zoom into this. So for here, I'm going to be scrolling on my mouse. Now, next we need to make this 2D object a 3D one. So now we click on our push-pull. So by clicking on this now, I'm able to pull this up and make a 3D object. So I'll click again. And now I know I need 5mm in thickness. So I'll press 5, but now where my template is in inches and I need millimeters, I'm going to put in for millimeters. Press enter, and now this is the scale or the size that I will need for this tutorial. So clicking on this will help me rotate so I can get a different view. Now I select on the measuring tape. I know that this is 6 inches across, but I only need to go halfway. So I can go over so far, click, 3 and enter, and now I'm snapped into the middle. This is my 3 inches. Now we have an opening of 30mm. We have a 5mm thickness. So with a little bit of math, we know from the center we need to go 20mm over. So I'm going to click, put in my 20, make sure I put in my millimeters, and do that now for both sides. We know we're going 30mm back. Let's do the same as before. Now, this is just a guideline. So now I need to make my rectangle. So once again, I click up here on my shapes. Zoom in. Notice how it shows intersection. So this is the intersection between the lines that I have already made and my guides. So now this gave me a rectangle. So now I need to pull this up. So I'm going to go to my push-pull. And notice how these two here are separate in color when I hover over. So this is the one that I want to pull up. So I need to go up. We know we need to be 30 high plus our 5mm thickness. So 35mm. We now have our height. So now rotate again. So now this is the front. So now to adjust for our 5mm thickness, I'm going to go in 5mm on my sides. One of the things about SketchUp is it will snap into place if it's a measurement you previously used. So I just use 5mm. These here now will snap in to my 5mm. For the bottom, I'm going to go from corner to corner. So now this is what I'm going to need to remove. So before I can remove, I need to make my square. Same as before. Once again, I'm going to use my push-pull. Notice now I can see completely through my design. So this is what we're going to look for. So now this is my final design. So from here now, I'll go up and export my STL. You want to make sure you have model unit selected and binary. I will now export this. Now I already have my SketchUp files. So here's what I already have. Let's go ahead and press save. Do I want to replace? Yes, I will. So now this is Cura. This is what you're going to use in order to set up your 3D printer. This right here is basically a view of your 3D printer. So now you want to go to File, Open File, and find the phone charger that you have. So this is the one that I just done. This is my STL file. Now when I open, notice how it's really tiny. So the scale it shows here is millimeters. STL files don't always remember your measurements, so you may need to change your scale. So when I click on this now, it prompts me to scale. You want to make sure you have uniform scaling selected. What this means is if you change the scale in the X, it will also change your Y and your Z. So I had 6 inches. So 6 inches is roughly 150 millimeters. So when I select that, this is now the size that I will print. This is how it will scale next to the actual bed of the 3D printer. If I want to rotate it, I can also do that. And notice how it shows me my degrees as I change. You also have mirror, so you can change your direction if you wish. And then you also have your view mode. So right now I'm viewing this as a solid, but now I can also view it in layers. By selecting layers, you can see each step that the printer will print. Each color shows different stuff. So I'm going to go back to solid, and you can also move this around if you wish. So if you have multiple items on your bed and you need to move it around, this is what you could use. So now to set up your 3D printer. Over on the right you have your settings. Here you have your nozzle. So I have a 0.4 millimeter nozzle, which is selected. I also have PLA, that's the plastic I will be using. Now in your profile, you have a fast print, normal quality, and high quality. For the purpose of this, we will just use a fast print. Now inside of whatever you print, you have the option of what type of infill to use. Maybe you want a hollow, light, which is 20%, dense is 50%, and solid would be using complete plastic. So what the infill is, you have a honeycomb style, and it will fill in a honeycomb pattern to fill up the inside. Right here you have enabled support. So for this right here, if I change my view, notice how I have red underneath here. So this here shows me that I need to have support in order to print this here to remain as I desire to print it. We also have build plate adhesion. So what that does, it will create a brim around the base of my object. Not only will this clean out the nozzle, but it also helps support it. Now down here, we see that this right now is going to take 8.5 hours to print. So for the purpose of this, I'm going to change my scale. By changing my scale to 1000%, it's now only going to take 1 hour and 7 minutes, roughly. And it's going to use up 1.3 meters, or approximately 8 grams of plastic. So from here I will save to removable drive, which is going to be my SD card. It says here, save to removable drive UM2, which stands for Ultimaker, final phone charger G code. And the G code is what you're going to need for your 3D printer. Go ahead and click eject, and now remove. So now I'm going to take the SD card and install it into the 3D printer. So here's where my SD card will go. So here now is my interface. So I move this around. I can go to print, material, or maintenance. So just by going into maintenance, I can go into my build plate, or I can go to advanced settings. So here I have heat up my nozzle, heat up the build plate, different settings that you can go into. So for this video, I won't be going into any detail. Then we have material. So here we can change the material if we wish. Now I already have PLA set up ready to go. And in your settings, you can select the different types of plastics that the Ultimaker will use. Now we want to print our design. So we go into print, and now we have to find what we put in. So this should be right at the bottom. So here I have UM2 final phone charger, which is what I was looking for. You can see at the bottom, it tells me the time, the nozzle, and also the material, and how much I will use. So now we have to wait for this to heat up, and the printer takes over from here. Now that the print is over, if you were to print it a full size, this is what you would get. So as you can tell, I have my bed, a slot to hold the phone, and a slot for the charging block. So as you can see, my phone fits like this, and I can put it in this way as well. Right here, I've done a print job only about maybe 25% of the way. Here you can see this is the bed. This is my support structures that I would need for the top part. And a common thing that sometimes happens with a 3D printer, sometimes something gets jammed up, or maybe your code is wrong, maybe you made a mistake in your SketchUp file. You sometimes get this spaghetti where there's an error in your code, error in the design, and the printer just can't read exactly what it's supposed to do. So that's it for my tutorial on 3D printing. I hope from this you took something, whether it be what type of plastic to use, maybe what type of printer, and things that you should look for. So good luck in 3D printing.